Yes. So I'm into a lot of wows right now. A lot of wows. Like wow, wow, wow in my life. Life is very good for me. So the curiosity part here is on the non-physical is sort of, the physical is an extension of non-physical. So altogether we get the all that is. So on this leading edge of physicality, we come back in a death experience into non-physical. And in that, so this is knowing and it's curiosity and it's, but I'm interested in identity in non-physical. Jerry and my parents and humanity, billions and billions. And just park that for a second, because the other thing is the young man as the physicist wondering what's big and what's little. We have the galaxies, we have the Hubble, we have a telescope called the Hubble. And if you look at this telescope images, there are billions of stars just in this, like our little sun. And so the interest question is we physically look through and extend our senses through devices like the Hubble telescope, and we see not just a galaxy like the Milky Way, which is us with billions, 200 billion stars. Then there are billions of these galaxies, and we have this thing called a Big Bang that's like an expanding universe. And this all seems physical to us. It's sort of energy manifestations. And my question is how is that perceived? So let's say I die, and I will, physically, this form. What will I see of this physical universe from the perspective of non-physical? How would it look? Or how will I see it? How will I sense it? And how will I know my identity without physical form? That's probably enough to ask.
It's enough for days of conversation. First of all, it's in the vortex. And so the answers will continue to come. These are the questions that Esther is asking.
And that's what happens. I mean, I get answers. I ask a question like that to you, and you're going to help me greatly. But then a lot of things will the lattice will keep filling in. Excuse me.
The timer has sounded, but we're going to take a little bit of time here and at least lay a basis for a future conversation about this, because nothing is more important to most of you than the way you fit into the bigger picture. And the reason that fitting into the bigger picture is important to you is because you have perspective or perception or belief that there is a bigger picture. As we began visiting with you all those years ago when Esther began receiving us, we wanted to help you to be aware that you were more than you see in this physical body, and that there is a non-physical part of you. And in that process, in wanting to help you to define that you were more than you know here in this physical body, the disadvantage of that was it causes the non-physical to feel like it's somewhere else. Where what we're wanting you to understand is that when we talk about leading edge, we're talking about all consciousness coming forward in this moment. So when you stand in a moment and you become aware of stars and planets and galaxies and so on, they exist not just because of your perspective of them. In other words, these other people in this room exist, but not because you've created them in this moment. You've rendezvoused with them. So all of these other things that exist in what you're calling a physical reality exist in and of their own right, and you are perceiving them, but they also are leading edge projections of that which is non-physical. And the identity that you feel in your personality is so much more than you have ever had any idea that it is, because it is so much that has gone before and so much that is present in what we are calling the non-physical realm, but it's manifesting in the here and now with you. And when you make your reemergence into non-physical, while your physical body will not be the housing that is focused the consciousness, that consciousness will still be as acutely focused as it is while it is here in your physical body. The only difference is the physical things along the physical trail that you've picked up that are resistant in nature won't be present in your vibration. So you just become that supercell, that supersonic, that super clear, that super intelligence, that super being that you were all along, that was somewhat muted by the contrast that you were living. And when the contrast lifts, you are that again and all that you've picked up along the way. And as you interact with others, this is the thing that is coming forward in a more powerful way, primarily because of Esther's experience with Jerry and her wanting to understand what her relationship with him now is. Let's start in a very basic place. So some years ago, when we were doing telephone consultations, Esther was not traveling so much, and many people every day called and had a telephone conversation. And a woman called whose husband had just recently made his transition into non-physical. He was a electrical engineer, and her doorbell was ringing freakishly at odd times of the day. She wanted to know, is this Mac? And it was. Appliances turning themselves on and off, all kinds of things happening in her house, which she liked them happening, but she wanted confirmation that it was his attention in her space. And we said, yes, it was. Following the conversation, Jerry and Esther get into their Suburban and they're on their way to dinner. And Esther is telling Jerry about this conversation because they'd had dinner with Doris and Mac many times. They were friends. And Esther is saying to Jerry, I wonder if Mac could play with us. He was an electrical engineer. Maybe that's why he's doing electrical stuff. But I wonder if he could make his presence known in our physical reality. And at that moment, the cruise control on the Suburban turned itself on. The foot pedal went right out from under Esther's foot. And off they went 10 miles an hour faster down Interstate 10. And Esther said, well, I guess that pretty much answers that. Then they were packing for a flight the next day, and they had a room in that house that was a packing room, wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor shelves with tables with suitcases that they left on the tables all the time, ready to leave on a moment's notice. And Esther is preparing the suitcases, and she's standing in front of a table with her back against some shelves that went nearly to the ceiling. And something fell off the shelf and hit her on the head. And it felt like a roll of Christmas wrap. It didn't hurt. It just sort of bonked her on the head. And when she picked it up, Doris was an artist, a magnificent artist. It was a print of a wonderful painting that Doris had given them 5 years earlier, and it was still rolled up with the rubber band around it. They had never bothered to get it framed. And on that day, after that conversation, that was the only thing that has ever fallen off a shelf and hit Esther right over the head. And Esther said, never again will I question our dearly departed's perspective of what we're about. So now Esther is having these experiences with Jerry. He blinks a light to her to tell her good morning, different light depending on where she is. Happens at different times under different conditions, but there have been all kinds of experiences. She's trying to keep a log of them because it is so satisfying and so interesting, the different things that are occurring. And so the question is coming to Esther. So what is Jerry doing the rest of the time? And the question also comes, is he aware of me all of the time, or do I have to focus him into being? Because she knows from her Abraham experience that if she provides an environment of well-being, if she is in enough of a state of ease or enough of a state of expectation, that with relative ease, she can allow the frequency, the vibration, the consciousness, whatever you want to call it, of Abraham to flow through her. And she recognizes there is no question in her mind that she has been receiving Abraham through all of these years. But the difference is she did not know that which was Abraham before she began receiving Abraham. The personality of Abraham is something that has been evolving. It is something that she has been allowing. It is something that she is co-creating with, where the personality of Jerry is a unique personality that she already identified. So what is his awareness in what's going on now? And he explains to her, as they write every morning, that he is aware of her all of the time. That he is aware of everything that she's doing, everything that she's thinking. And then she wants to know, but how can that be? Are there not other important things that you might want to turn your attention to? She's not trying to get rid of him. She would like his undivided attention. But if she's trying to find logically, she's trying to explain to herself how this non-physical consciousness works. And the only way you can understand it is by first accepting that there is for Jerry and for a blending in to that broader perspective. So there is a keener awareness, and that it is your attention to them, to us, that invites. In other words, we're not projecting ourselves there. We are invited by the vibrational frequency that you establish as you are considering. Helpful? Mm-hmm. So now take it further. There was more to your question than that.
I think that handles the identity. Identity, somewhat. I mean, I don't think we'll never know until we're back. This focus is just the focus in physicality.
But you can know. You can know as you are, and this is really the wonderful point of Jerry making his transition. It's the wonderful point of someone like Esther being so close to someone like Jerry and now having this experience. The next book she writes is about that very thing, of that merging of the physical and the non-physical. It's about understanding that there is no separation between the two. It's all about attention and perspective and vibrational rendezvousing. And it's not different than it is here in your physical reality. You are vibrationally rendezvousing. You just don't know that you are, you see. And what you will come to understand, and some do get it, scientists, inventors, mathematicians, artists, musicians, usually people who are reaching for something that is new and that is beyond, often they recognize that co-creative state when they get into that feeling. But even athletes are in the zone. In other words, there's not one of you that is exempt from this alignment with source energy. And your lives will be so much richer and fuller when you accept that everyone that you've ever known and those that you've known of that you may not have personally known, all of them are available and accessible to you whenever you think about them. Whenever you think about them. Whatever they are or whatever they represent to you can come forward into your leading edge, and you can share that moment or perspective with them. Esther was somewhat concerned, as Jerry was always sitting here making the notes from the seminars, and she loved following the seminar. He would spend the following many, many hours looking through his notes and adjusting them more and making more notation, because he was always looking for the information for the subscription programs, for the best of Abraham, for the quote clips. He was always looking for pieces that he could present to those who didn't have as much time as he did to move through the material. And so Esther was concerned. She couldn't think of anyone that she wanted to do that. Everyone who's close to her is already busy and doing what they're doing. And so she worried a little bit that she didn't know how she was going to accomplish that. And she was delighted to discover that she is really, 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 really good at it. And the reason that she is really, 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 really good at it is because she relaxes, and Jerry's right there doing it with her. And he was already really, 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 really good at it. You see what we're getting at? Mm-hmm. In other words, you are not ever alone. You are not on your own. You are always supported. You just have to tune to the frequency that allows this brilliance, this infinite intelligence, this all-knowingness, this endless love. You just have to tune into the frequency of that and allow all of it that has always been forward with you in this powerful now. Jerry read Seth before he met us. And Seth was being expressed by Jane Roberts at the time. They never met them personally. They only found the books afterward. And Seth said, you create your own reality. And Jerry loved the idea of that. How is that so? And we've spent all of these years talking about that. And Seth said, your point of power is in the present. And that's what Seth was talking about. But we're talking about it so much more fully, so much more specifically, so much more intricately. This is what Jerry wanted to know. And this is what he now understands fully. And so does Esther. And so do you as a result of this conversation.